Hey there guys, we're going to be going for a second clear on Hellflare of the Dark Dragon King. This is the final boss of Dark Visions number 4. He's a little bit tricky. He's way harder than the previous final bosses we've had. Now, if you want to see a quick clear, which wins by turn 4 and gets a pretty decent score, I'll link my original clear video down below. If you are not able to win by turn 4, which quite honestly is really hard to do, we're going to be doing a slower clear, which goes through the thresholds, handles the mechanics, and still gets a win in. But you won't score quite as good, but you'll still get a lot of points for a first turn clear or first time clear. Now we're going to be doing the Hellflare version, which is the hard version. Everything that I do in this video also applies to the easy version, the Throne of the Dark Dragon King. It's the exact same fight. The only difference is the second one has higher stats. So anything I do in the second fight also applies to the first fight as well. So we're going to go ahead and go into this fight. This is my score from my first clear. Now we're going to go for the re-clear, the slower clear. Now you can use any of 4 elements on this boss. You can use ice, water, earth, or light element. The boss has 200% resist to fire, lightning, wind, and dark. So don't use those elements on the boss. You want to stick to ice, water, earth, or light. One more thing is never mix elements on this boss. Pick one of those 4 and stick exclusively to that element. Do not mix them, please. So we're going to be doing an ice team. If you're doing a water team, use only water, etc., etc., etc. Special mention goes to the Ring of the Luci. That's a very popular evade item. If you're using Ring of the Luci, you will be counterattacking with Holy Element. And if you're not using a Holy team, that's bad. So, there you go. So this is the team we're going to be using. You can use mages or physical, by the way. They both work equally fine here. We're going to be using a physical cover tank. You could use Mirage every single turn instead of a physical cover tank, but a physical cover tank is a little bit easier in my opinion. But it's whatever you want. You can either use a physical cover with evasion, or you can use Mirage every single turn. For me, it was easier to just stick in Warrior of Light. So he's full evasion, and the cover tank needs 100% dark resist. This needs to be after buffs. So if we were using a dark resist buff, less would be okay as long as it gets to 100 after a buff. There is an imperil, but I'll explain that later. But yeah, 100% after a buff. Because I'm already doing other buffs, I don't want to have to bother with dark resist as well. So we just geared him for 100%. You also need paralyze and blind immunity on the entire team. And again, you could buff that with an immunity buff. I just didn't want to bother with that, so I geared for immunity. And of course, blind only matters if you're using physical units. If you're using mages, if you're using real mages, you don't need blind. Units like Ace and Rim do still need blind immunity. And finally, the entire team needs 100% after a buff to fire and wind resist. We're going to be using 70% buffs, so to fire and wind. So the whole team needs 30 fire and 30 wind before the buff. So that's going to be Warrior of Light. He's going to be evade tanking. As far as provoke goes, by the way, if you're using a physical cover tank, you don't need provoke. Provoke is irrelevant if you're using physical cover. If you're deciding to use Mirage instead of cover, you need provoke, and that provoker needs evasion and 100 dark resist. But we're not using Mirage. Machina is going to be our breaker. He also chains bolting strike, which he's going to be chaining with Rim. Other than that, he does do He does do magical mitigation, which is very, very important here. But we're bringing Luna Freya, so we're not going to use Machina's mitigation. But someone on the team does need to be able to buff magical mitigation for the Mega Flares. So Machina is an option. Luna Freya is a better option. We're using her instead. Rena is a really good option, etc., etc. So he's using an ice weapon because that's our element. He can't imbue ice, so we'll be equipping an ice weapon. Now here's the catch, the tricky part. You also need to hit the boss with the opposing element every turn. So because we're an ice team, we need to hit the boss with fire element every turn as well. Now, technically speaking, you only need to do it every third turn when the boss reaches max enrage. That counters his enrage and calms him down by using the other element. Just for simplicity's sake, there's already a lot going on here. I'm going to say hit him with the opposing element every single turn. That's technically not required. It's only every few turns. But I don't want to confuse people, so just use the opposing element every single turn. That means if you're using a water team, hit him with thunder every single turn. If you're using a if you're using a light team, hit him with dark every turn. If you're using an earth team, hit him with wind every turn. Now, the boss does have 200% resist to his opposing elements, so he's got 200% fire resist. So you don't want to put a other element weapon on your actual DPS. Machina's not really a DPS here. He's just a chain bot and a breaker, so his damage is irrelevant. So we're letting him do the fire damage. So he's doing fire and ice, and with Imperils, that will lower the boss's 200% fire resist below 100%, so Machina can actually help chain as well. Alright. Rem is going to be here as our DPS. She's going to be a chainer. She does have general mitigation buff, which we can cast on emergencies. Most of the general mitigation will be handled by Warrior of Light. We only need it once or twice the entire fight. But Rem can do general mitigation as well as a backup. We're not going to rely on her for general mitigation for the most part. Paralyzed, blind immune, 30% wind and fire resist. Alright, Luna Freya is going to be our magical mitigation. We're going to be taking at least one Mega Flare, potentially 2 or 3, depending on how slow this clear is. So magical mitigation, big help, not only in reducing the damage we take, but improving our score, because the less damage the Mega Flare deals, the better our score. Other than that, she'll be doing stat buffs, healing, etc. But one important thing for Luna Freya is she has Light of Restoration. This is an AoE dispel on our own team. There is going to be an imperil to all elements after every Mega Flare. So there's a few ways to deal with the boss's AoE imperil. The easiest, in my opinion, and the best way is to dispel your own team and get rid of it. So we're going to use Light of Restoration to dispel our own team, which gets rid of the imperil, and then we'll just rebuff after that. Another option is Rem. Actually, Rem has Leave It To Me. It's the same thing. It dispels your own team and gets rid of all the imperils. Keep in mind, it also gets rid of all your buffs. So you have to rebuff after doing this, especially resistance buffs. But we're going to be using Luna Freya for doing it. Another option is the old-fashioned Dispelga trick, where you dual cast Dispelga and redirect the second one to your team. Or dual cast something like Curaja and then Dispelga, because you actually don't want to Dispel Bahamut. Yeah, so there's options. You could use something like Myra's LB, which cures imperils. The final option is just gearing your team in more resistance gear. You could gear to 160% fire and wind resist instead and not worry about the imperil. You can just leave it there if you over gear for it. That's going to hurt like your DPS. That's going to hurt your spirit stat by putting more resistance on your team. So I recommend dispelling it, but it's totally up to you the way you want to handle the dispel. Selfie is going to be our resistance buffer. We have her on Tetra Sylphide for 70% wind resist with Bar Aroga, and she has Bar Farega naturally in her kit. So she's going to do, and she has dual cast as well. She's going to dual cast the 70% Bar Aroga and the 70% Bar Farega every time we need it. So turn 1 and after every dispel. There's going to be a lot of dispels in this fight, both from Bahamut and from our own team removing the imperils. And when she's not dispelling, she'll be chaining. So we geared her for Dragon Killer, gave her the 30 wind and fire resist, and she cannot imbue herself with ice, and we're using her physical chaining skills. So we gave her an ice weapon so she can chain properly with the right element. Ace is going to be here only for his DPS. He's not using any utility whatsoever, even though he has the option to. Now, Ace, if you wanted to, Ace could be your Mirage unit. He does have Mirage, and it's a chaining Mirage, so he's a really good choice if you'd rather do that instead of like a cover tank. But because his Mirage is locked into one frame, or Chaos Wave Awakened, and we're going to be using him to flexible chain with either Selfie or Rem, depending on what's going on that turn, we wanted him to be able to use either chain family equally. He can only Mirage with Chaos Waves Awakened. Same thing with his Imbue. His Imbue is only Chaos Wave Awakened, so that would only work while chaining with Selfie. Therefore, we gave him an Ice weapon. So Ace never has to Imbue. He has total flexibility with this setup to chain Bolting Strike or Chaos Wave Awakened, depending on what's going on that turn. So I recommend you give Ace an Ice weapon for this fight, if you're doing it the same exact team I am. Of course, if you're not chaining with Rem, you can just stick to one family. Chaos Wave Awaken is totally fine. He could self-imbue. Okay, the last thing to mention is the time limit. You need to win by turn 12. 12 turns is fine, but turn 13 is too far. After your turn 12, if the boss is not dead, he's going to AoE Dispel you and then Mega Flare after the Dispel. That means you have no buffs whatsoever. It's probably going to be a game over. Now, technically speaking, there are ways to survive it. Like, you could hide the whole team, you could guard everyone and just cross your fingers and pray. In any case, it's going to be really, really bad on turn 12, so just assume the fight to have a turn limit of 12 turns. So, win by turn 12, and we're good. I've talked way too much. Let's get in here and fight. Alright, one more thing to mention is... There's so much going on, I know. You don't want to push the boss below 60% until after the first Mega Flare. When he finishes Mega Flare countdown, he's going to do... if he's below 60%, he'll do double Mega Flare instead of one, which is twice the damage taken. It's harder to survive. It is very survivable with good gear and good spirit, but it's still going to hurt your damage score. So we're going to aim for not going below 60% until after the Mega Flare. Alright, so right away we need a resistance. We're going to dual cast Bar Aroga and Bar Farega with Selfie. Alright, Machina will just go ahead and break the boss with Siphon Sword and will unlock his Awakening. Warrior of Light will cover. Now notice I'm not using any kind of like buffs and such. We're going to be taking 0 damage whatsoever until the Mega Flare. The only damage in this entire fight with this setup we're going to take is Mega Flare. We're immune to literally everything else. The first Mega Flare is on turn 4. So until turn 4, we don't need any kind of mitigation or breaking the boss's magic or attack. We're immune to everything. On turn 3, we're going to get Dispelled. So there's no point in wasting mitigation cooldowns and all right now, because they're going to do absolutely nothing in the first part of the fight, and by the time we need it, they've been dispelled already. So don't waste your mitigation cooldowns until after the Dispel on turn 3. So Luna Freya will just, for now, we'll do Break Immunity and a stat buff, so we do a little bit more damage. And then Rem. Now Rem does need to imbue herself. We're going to go ahead and imbue... And then we're going to Seraphim to break the boss, or to imperil the boss really well, and Flying Daggers. I could accelerate, but I don't want to accelerate quite yet, because it'll be more DPS doing it this way, just trust me. And because Ace is chaining with Rem, we're going to just Bolting Strike. We're not going to mix families. So let's go ahead and chain. Now I'm not sure how much damage we're going to deal. We're dealing more than I thought we would, actually, considering we're only using 2 of our 4 chainers. So we did 16% on the first turn. Yeah, we don't want to go below 60%, so I'm not going to do... I was going to do a 4-person chain next turn, but because we don't want to go below 60, we're actually not going to. Alright, so Machina. Remember, Machina is using that opposing element weapon. Because we're chaining ice, Machina is using a fire weapon. So he needs to hit the boss every single turn. So we're going to go ahead and Elemental Weakness... break and break, and because I don't want to push the boss too far yet, we're not gonna chain him. We did 16%. We got 24% to go. I don't think Selfie's adding an extra 8% by herself because she's not wearing the best gear. So we're gonna Booyaka 3 times. And we're gonna go ahead and chain. Oh, we can't because I did. It's fine. We're just gonna chain Ace and Rem. We're not gonna chain Selfie this turn. Alright, we're going to go ahead and accelerate and double Flying Daggers, and then Ace will Terror Burst. Alright, Selfie, we're just going to guard Selfie. We're not going to bother with her. Let's go ahead and chain. Don't go below, oh, please don't go below 60. Okay, we're good. These two can just reload. Yeah, we're not taking any damage. Yeah, and the reason I'm not going below 60 yet is because I want to only take one Mega Flare. Below 60, after the countdown, it'll be a double Mega Flare, and we'll lose more points for damage taken. So we're just gonna chill out for a turn or two while we sit here. All right, so Machina will swap to just single casting attack and magic break. And we're just going to guard everyone. We're just going to chill. We're just going to chill. So this is turn 3. This is going to be the Dispel turn. We're going to get Dispelled at the end of the round on turn 3. It's called Hollow. It's like a big black circle. You'll see it at the end. And right here, that little circle is the Dispel. That's the signal. It's cast Hollow. We have been completely dispelled. And next turn, well, this turn coming up, is Mega Flare. So you want to reapply stat buffs, or spirit buffs specifically, magical mitigation, general mitigation, and you also need all the usual stuff. So we also need resistance buffs, we need either cover or mirage. So, Warrior of Light is going to... we could use Warrior of Light's None Can Extinguish. This is both cover and mitigation in the same skill. Because Rems is a shorter cooldown, we're going to go ahead and just regular cover with Warrior of Light. We're going to use Rems 50% general mitigation with Live On. We're going to hit... Remember, we need to hit the boss with fire every turn. So Machina is going to go ahead and Stunning Slash. That breaks the boss. If you didn't have Lunafreya, Machina would double cast here. We would do Stunning Slash and Magical Mitigation, so we'll go ahead and do that too. That also gives us a Spirit buff. It's only 150 Spirit buff, but it's better than nothing. But we've got Lunafreya. So Lunafreya is going to give Benevolence. This is a 50% Magic Mitigation and a 180 stat buff. It's just a better version of Machina. And we'll put our Break Immunity again. And Selfie needs to give us the resist buffs. We need that Fire and Wind Resist. So we're going to Wind Resist and Fire Resist. Alright, so we're all resisted. Ace is just going to sit here. We're going to guard. So here's the Mega Flare. It's only going to be a single Mega Flare because we kept the boss above 60%. Okay, and at the end of the turn is Mega Flare. And here it comes, Mega Flare. This cannot be covered. It ignores cover, so don't try being smart. And like, I'm going to bring Cecil and just cover it. You can't cover Mega Flare. It ignores cover. So don't bring Cecil. I love him, but don't bring him. Okay. After the Mega Flare, the boss imperiled our entire team to all elements. So you'll notice we're completely imperiled. Now, if you geared your team in 160% resist, you can ignore the imperil. We decided to not do that, so we're going to go ahead and dispel the team. Also, just special mention, because the Mega Flare is done, we've got 5 turns to the next one, we're not taking any damage anymore, so you don't need to worry about mitigation buffs. You do still need to do physical cover and resistance buffs, though. So we're going to go ahead and... Well, actually, no. First, we're going to dispel. We're going to dispel our own team. So Lunafreya is going to Light of Restoration. That dispels our team. And then she'll put up Light of Order for Break Immunity. Alright, so that completely dispelled our team. Now we need to rebuff. So Selfie is going to dual cast Wind and Fire Resist. Warrior of Light is going to just regular cover. We don't need any kind of mitigations right now. Alright, Machina is going to... now it's time to actually start trying to kill the boss. So the next Mega Flare is on turn 9. We want to try to win in the next 4 or 5 turns before turn 9 is over, so we don't take that Mega Flare. If you can't win by turn 9, it's okay. Or is it turn 8? Well, the boss will do a countdown. In a few turns, there'll be a Mega Flare. In any case, Ace is now going to triple Bolting Strike. Rem is going to triple Bolting Strike. Don't forget, we dispelled our team, so Rem's Imbue is gone. So we have to re-imbue, Accelerate, and Seraphim Strike. Alright, and Machina is going to triple. We're going to break the boss's defense. Is he still imperiled? He is. Okay, so we can actually do regular chain with Machina. So we're going to break defense. We're going to elemental weakening, and we're going to refresh his awakening buff. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and chain these. Now notice that we didn't do the 100-point chain score yet. We're gonna get that on this next coming up turn. Alright, so once again, we're taking 0 damage. The only damage we take is Mega Flares. So we're completely immune to everything. Okay, 3. We have 3 more turns to a Mega Flare. I'm pretty sure we can win in the next 3 turns. Alright, let's have Luna Freya do a bigger stat buff. Now we're going to go ahead and get that 100-point chain score with our DPS. We're going to Booyaka 3 times, which is triple Chaos Wave Awakened. Now Ace is going to change to Chaos Wave Awakened with Selfie. So we're going to Attack Hand, Burst Plus, and Jackpot Triad. While Rem and Machina will do Bolting Strike. So we're going to triple with Rem. We're going to just triple Flying Daggers. And Machina will triple his breaks, which are also chains. Make sure you don't cast Enfeeblement Drive. Spoiler alert, I did that the previous attempt, and that dispels the boss, and that was a mistake. Yeah, don't cast Enfeeblement Drive on this fight. We're casting Siphon Sword, Stunning Slash, and Elemental Weakening for Machina. So Warrior of Light can just cover physical every single turn. That's all he's doing. Alright. And let's go ahead and chain. So this will get us the 101 chain point score. Now, if your team can't fit all these chainers and you can't get a 101 point chain score, don't sweat it. You know, you're not getting a perfect score in this fight anyway. Whatever. But it's turn 6. So turn 6, at the end of the turn, we're going to get AoE Dispelled again. So we have to rebuff completely next turn. Make sure you don't miss that. If you get AoE Dispelled and don't rebuff, you're gonna have death. There it is. That little circle is the trigger that you got dispelled. It's time to completely rebuff the team. So Selfie is going to dual cast Wind and Fire Resist. Warrior of Light needs to physical cover. We've still got time to the next Mega Flare. Luna Freya will do Light of Order for the break immunity, and we'll do a Light of Purity for a small stat buff. Let's see. The rest of the team doesn't really need to do anything. Rem got dispelled, so she needs to re-imbue. The other two are using elemental weapons. So Rem needs to re-imbue, and then we'll just double Flying Dagger. We're going back to Bolting Strike chaining, so Ace is going to chain just Bolting Strike. This is why I like Ace for being flexible. And then Machina is going to triple his breaks. We're going to do Siphon, Stunning, and Elemental Weakening. We're not going to cast Enfeeblement. Make sure. I made that mistake. Alright, so this might even kill the boss, potentially. Nah, we're going to be a little bit short, I think. A little bit short. It's fine, it's fine. We've got time until the next Mega Flare. Now, the one thing that I should point out, if you're like one turn away from the next Mega Flare, below 10% health, the boss does triple Mega Flare after the countdown. So if you can't finish the boss before this coming in Mega Flare, apparently it's on turn 8 apparently. If you can't finish the boss by the turn 8 Mega Flare, don't push him below 10%. Set up your team to take a double Mega Flare, which is still totally fine. I think we took like 4k damage or something from the first Mega Flare, so we would have all survived the double Mega Flare. But a triple Mega Flare is kind of painful. So try not to take that. So we're going to go ahead and finish the fight here. We're going to... Ace is going to triple Chaos Wave Awakened, because we're going to chain it with Selfie. I mean, the boss is at 3%, but we're going to do it anyway. Booyaka. Rem, I think her cooldown is ready. Accelerate, it is. And then Machina's already chaining, so there we go. And, I mean, just for the sake of it, let's go ahead and do that for a bigger buff beforehand. And we won turn 8 with a slowish clear. And that turn would have been a Mega Flare, but that turn did not proceed, or the spell did not precede that turn. So we actually were not dispelled going into that turn 8 Mega Flare, which makes it a little bit easier to survive, even though it was a A double Mega Flare turn. Yeah, because we didn't have to rebuff on turn 8, if you're worried about the double Mega Flare, you can just guard your entire team. Because you don't need to rebuff before the turn 8 Mega Flare. So, like, stall at, like, 15% or 20% on that turn 8 Mega Flare, and then guard your entire team if you think you need it. And after that turn 8 Mega Flare, you've got until turn 12 to finish the fight. So here's our final score. We did flawless score on KOs, effective attacks, and biggest chain. That's 30k. That's 200,000 for the clear period. We didn't take much damage, honestly. We got a 6.2 out of 10 for damage received. Damage dealt, I mean, low on damage dealt, but if you can't kill them by turn 4, you just got to go for the slow clear. It's fine. So there we go. There was a slow and steady clear. And if you don't have those units I used, you can just swap out for same thing. Like if you've got Bahamut Dark Fina, you can do an Earth team. And you can use, like, Selfie can imbue herself with Earth, and you can chain Selfie with Bahamut Dark Fina. You can use physical units. You can use, you know, a water team with Lunafrey as imbue. You can use whatever you want. Just stick to one element, and I'm not going to go over everything again. Just remember all the stuff I explained during the beginning of the video. There we go. Hope it's helpful. I'll see you guys next time.